The Legion 7i Gen 9 is a definitive hybrid, and is not to be confused as the mere successor of the 2023 7i Gen 8, because it takes elements from both the traditional 7i Slim and it borrows some elements from the 7i Pro line while adding a few new hardware design choices. So it essentially sits right in the middle of the Slim and the Pro, offering a solid balance of lightweight, performance, and portability with a more modern and approachable design that doesn't outright scream gamer. You don't have vents coming at you from all angles as on their flagship 9i model, and despite the fact that they're both 16-inch laptops with a 99 watt-hour battery and they share the very same 14th generation CPU, the 7i has a considerably smaller footprint, and its only visible exhaust vents on the entire chassis are on the very back. Now, a design like this is only possible due to the reimagined cooling system that Lenovo is calling the Legion Cold Front 5.0. Its purpose is to control the movement of air in a very deliberate and methodical way by leveraging a center-positioned hypercooling chamber. The dual fans spin in the opposite direction and pull in air through the intake vents on the underside of the body, and then the air is funneled into one of three directions. Much of the air is immediately expelled vertically into either the left or the right back vent, and is therefore a lot hotter and released with much more pressure. However, some of that air is redirected horizontally into that center cooling chamber where it's slowly released through the center back vent. And if you place your hands on the back of the 7i under heavy load, you can physically feel the difference between the air that's being redirected on that center path. Now, this particular unit I have in hand again features the 14900HX CPU as with the 9i, and it has 32 gigs of LPDDR5 RAM, 1 terabyte of SSD storage, and an RTX 4070 GPU, which unfortunately is the max offered for this model. And on contrary to the listing that first went up on Lenovo's site and Best Buy, featuring a panel with a resolution of 2.5K and a 240Hz refresh rate, this model actually features the 3.2K display with 100 DCI-P3, and it has a refresh rate of 165. Now, from a competitor standpoint, the Asus Zephyrus G16 is probably one of the most popular 16-inch comparable releases of 2024. Both the 7i and the Zephyrus are offering black and white colorways. The displays of both of these units are 500 nits, and they both have very minimalistic slim designs. The Zephyrus overall weight comes in at about 0.90 pounds lighter and is slightly thinner, but you are getting a larger battery for the 7i, a more powerful CPU, and a much sharper 3.2K image with this model versus 2.5 on Zephyrus. However, you are getting an OLED panel on the Zephyrus with a higher refresh rate, at least when you're comparing it to this particular model, and it also supports HDR. Another advantage for G16 is that you can go all the way up to a GeForce RTX 4090, whereas for the 7i, you are locked at that 4070 GPU. However, it's worth pointing out that with a thin and light laptop such as this, GPU wattage is limited to about 115 watts, which means you really wouldn't be able to take full advantage of something like a 4090 anyway. Still, there are ways around that, so I think a 4080 max config may have been the sweet spot here. Another advantage for 7i over G16 is that it features 3 USB-C 3.2 ports to the G16's 2. Now, at the time of this recording, this 3.2 panel version hasn't officially gone up on the US site for some reason, so I can't 100% confirm pricing, but if you take a look at this page here with international pricing, it looks like the prices between the 3.2 and the 2.5K display are fairly comparable. And the laptop build, the ports, and the cooling does not change regardless of your 7i screen resolution. For good measure, a quick rundown is that the right side features a full-size SD card reader, which is positioned right next to a USB-C 3.2 port, offering 140 watt power delivery and 10 gigabytes per second transfer speed. More towards the back, you'll find the electronic camera shutter switch and a USB-A 3.2 port. On the left side, there's another USB-A 3.2 port and 2 USB-C 3.2 Gen 2 ports, one of which features Thunderbolt 4, supporting 140 watt power delivery and 40 gigabytes transfer speed, as well as a headphone auxiliary jack. On the back, you'll find the single HDMI 2.1 port and the proprietary power input, which is supported with the 230 watt power adapter that comes inside of the box. The very same TrueStrike keyboard that comes with the 9i is present on the 7i as well. However, you'll notice that it has a much more traditional layout and that the trackpad has much more surface area, and as a result, the 7i feels a lot more roomy than a 9i. But you know what? The lip on the 9i feels smoother and more rounded, while the 7i is a little on the sharp side. And so outside of the 7i trackpad, which I think is the clear definitive winner, I'm still debating on which keyboard layout I prefer. So to kick off this section, I want to show you guys a few 3D Mark scores for the 7i. I pulled these with a combination of the Lenovo Vantage Performance and the AI Balance FPS Boost feature presets, and you can see for each respective test that Performance delivered the highest overall score. And for those interested in Sony's Ghost of Tsushima for PC, I'm happy to report that the Legion I has performed really well with this title. I've been testing it out with the latest GeForce graphics drivers released on the 21st, version 555.85, and I've been experimenting with both FSR 3 and DLLS running simultaneously, as well as running them independently. And so far, I've been getting the smoothest and most consistent performance for the 7i, with DLLS running independently geared towards performance. For both cinematic cutscenes and for gameplay, I'm getting well over 130 FPS. Ninja Theory's Hellblade 2 is another PC title that I've been playing on the 7i, and it might be one of the most visually stunning titles of 2024. As you can see, this game is extremely GPU heavy, so only the mightiest of graphic cards are going to be able to maintain over 100 FPS with higher resolutions and higher graphic presets. However, for the 7i with high graphics, I was able to come in around the 100 FPS mark for both 1440p and 600p resolutions, and if I bring the game graphics down to medium, we start to exceed 100 FPS fairly easily. In 4K with DLLS geared to performance with medium graphics will put you in the high 80 FPS range. Anyway, the Legion Vantage suite that comes preloaded on the 7i is identical to what you get for Lenovo's flagship. This is your one-stop shop for monitoring hardware frequency, software updates, power profile management, keyboard RGB lighting customizations, and so on. And here's a Cinebench breakdown as it relates to Cinebench 2023 and Cinebench 2024. Throughout these tests, temperature didn't exceed 75 degrees Celsius and fan noise didn't exceed 58 dB. Switching over to Cyberpunk 2077, here's a graphical breakdown of how the 7i benched. For balanced AI FPS boost feature versus performance, the 7i maxed out at a 200 FPS for performance mode and 180 average FPS with AI. For 600p resolution, about 180 FPS for performance and 170 with AI. And with upscaling disabled, 127 FPS average for performance and 116 for AI. For 3.2K, given that the 7i maxes out with an RTX 4070, I brought the graphics down to medium and we see a pretty sizable advantage for the Vantage performance mode over the AI FPS boost feature. 115 FPS average for performance and 96 FPS for AI. And keeping all else consistent and activating overclock, I actually saw a boost for AI, but a small decrease for performance. Now when we move into 4K with comparable settings, you can see the averages drop into the 70s, which is honestly still very good for a thin and light. But again, I really wish Lenovo offered an RTX 4080 option for this model. Here's a snapshot of Horizon Zero Dawn performance across 1440p through 4K, and you can see that the AI FPS boost comes in on top of 1440p and 600p with DLLS active, but performance inches AI out with upscaling disabled. However, 3.2 and 4K resolutions, performance mode came out on top each and every time. When it comes to battery life, this subject is very subjective. It depends on a lot of variables, and it really comes down to how you're using your laptop and whatever the circumstances may be. Things like dropping your refresh rate from 165 to 60, lowering screen brightness, and capping in-game FPS can all have a dramatic effect in terms of when you ultimately need to reach for a power brick. But if you're going to be going all out on this power-hungry i9 14th-gen CPU, maxing out in-game settings at the 500 nits, 165 Hz, you're looking at about 2 hours to 2 hours and a half, tops. This is slightly better than the flagship 9i, as that screen maxes out at 1200 nits. That said, if you're simply streaming a video indoors, you can drop the brightness to about 50%, roughly 250 nits give or take, shift down to 60 Hz, and you're looking at about 4.5 hours. Under those same conditions, if you're simply browsing the web, reading articles, chatting and whatnot, you can add about an hour onto that, so 5.5 hours. Simply put, considering that you're locked into either a 4060 or 4070 GPU, if you're looking into the 7i Gen 9 primarily for AAA gaming more than anything else, I'd probably lean more towards the 2.5K panel variant that has the 240 Hz display, because you're just going to get better performance with larger games out of this GPU at that 600p native resolution. However, if you're going to go with that 600p variant, in my opinion, the Zephyrus G16 becomes much more competitive, as it's offering up to a RTX 4090 at that very same 2.5K resolution with the 240 Hz refresh rate as well, plus the OLED display technology. Though again, it does have a slightly smaller battery and a less powerful and less capable CPU. At the end of the day, there are strong arguments that can be made for both the 7i Gen 9 2.5K model as well as for the 3.2K. But me personally, I prefer the 3.2K model because A, I am a content creator and the colors are more accurate on that panel. B, I love to be able to stream videos on my laptop at higher quality. And C, I like to play more than just AAA games when I'm on the go. I like to play AA, indies, and side scrollers as well, in which case I prefer a crispier image in those scenarios. But I want to know what you think. Have you been looking into the 7i? And do you prefer the Glacier White or the Eclipse Black variant? And in general, do you prefer higher refresh rates over a higher quality panel overall? And what do you hope to see for the 7i Slim for the next revised model? As always, thanks for watching and supporting the channel, and I will see you guys in the next one.